Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for The Voice of Leadership and for Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. And today we are talking about creating community at work. And before we get into the workplace directly, let me just talk about people in general. People were designed and created for community, to live in community. We are social beings, not those who are meant to live solitary and apart from other people. When you think about it, when God created Adam, Adam was in communion and fellowship with God, and God was the one most like Adam because Adam had been created in God's image. And then later, when Eve came on the scene, Adam had someone very much like him that he could fellowship with, and the two of them together still communed with God in the Garden of Eden. So all along, there was the sense of community with others. And even as our children are born and when babies come into the world, they are helpless alone. If they don't have parents to raise them, they will suffer and die, most likely because they're just not able to fend for themselves. So we've been placed into families, which are our first community. And then from there, we have extended family. And often in some cultures, multiple generations live together in the same house or even on the same compound. And so we have villages, we have tribes, neighborhoods, cities, states, and countries. The whole world even collaborates across different communities. And so that's a part of who we are. Without community, we have a tendency to wither and to die. And that is physical death, mental death, because and what I mean by that is we become unhealthy from a physical point of view in terms of our cognitive abilities and our other abilities that are God given, and our mental health as well. So, physically, cognitively, mentally, we are challenged when we are in isolation. And probably the most recent example is what happened during the time of the COVID crisis. And people were significantly isolated at that time. And it was particularly hard on the elderly, many of whom were living alone or in facilities where they could not have visits from family members or from friends, and for single people who were living alone as well. Sometimes, if people were living in their houses with their spouses or their family members, those family bonds often were strengthened during that time of isolation because they had a chance to get to know each other better. However, for those living alone or in more facilities and commercial settings, it was a very tough time. And we are on the aftermath of that, seeing a lot of mental health issues and concerns, particularly depression. And we know that a lot of people died in part because of physical illnesses, also because of the impact of the isolation. It was difficult to be as resilient as they normally would be because of being in that situation. And we know that even in a prison sense, when people are in solitary confinement, that it's difficult for most people. And even when workers in the prison go to that prisoner to bring food or whatever they're doing, sometimes there's an increase in antisocial behavior and lashing out that is experienced from the person who is in solitary confinement. We also know that if we look back at earlier times in the history of people in the nuclear family, there were often multiple children. You could have 10 children or even more. And the older children were tasked with chores in support of the family, including child giving responsibilities to sustain the family. And many times the children were involved in the family business, whatever it was. The family business could be farming. Maybe they would help with milking the cows or gathering eggs from the chickens, or perhaps the family business was in dry cleaning or a corner store, a grocery store, a five and dime, a restaurant, and I've often seen little children, 7 or 8 years old, learning how to greet guests, learning how to ring up purchases, and other tasks of the family business. We also find that in Acts 2, when the early church was just beginning and just getting started in Jerusalem, that they actually gathered together in community. And I want to read a few of those verses about how they gathered in community so we can extract some of the pieces from it. And it says in Acts 2, starting with verse 41, then those who gladly received his word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them. And they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and fellowship, in the breaking of bread and in prayers. Then fear came upon every soul, and many wonders and signs were done through the apostles. Now all who believed were together and had all things in common, and sold their possessions and goods and divided them among all as anyone had need. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. And I want you to notice that in this early community of the early church, they were praising God, they were fellowshipping together, they were practicing the tenets of the doctrine that they had been taught, they were in prayer, they were performing signs and wonders to see the power of God and what God would do to benefit them. They sold their possessions and shared in the increase in the produce. They were in gladness, they were happy, and they were in simplicity of heart. There was no significant stress or worry at their time. At that time, they were doing things together, going house to house, eating together, being together. That was an example of community. And they had favor with all men as they were a community together. So they weren't isolated. They weren't just operating as individuals. Community life was also important. They were doing life together. So when I think about the office, when I think about the business, the company where you may work, that is an opportunity for community also. We spend more time at work than almost any other place. And I want to identify several ways that we can be in community at work. Number one would be what I'll call creativity and innovation. When we're in community together, it helps to elevate the ideas that we think about, and it sharpens what we are creating. If you create alone, you might miss some things, but when others are in the mix, we actually spark food for thought in each other. We inspire one another and build on each other's ideas so that the creativity and innovation goes to the next level. And you might wonder, well, why is that important? Because in businesses today, in the landscape of the business environment, you have to figure out new ways to accelerate your creative advantage in the marketplace. That means you want to be creative about what you're already doing and how you could do it better. And you also want to be innovative, extending what you're doing even into some new areas and into some new places. So, what happens with creativity and innovation is our community will ask us the kind of questions or make the kind of statements that is consistent with possibility thinking. And it's the what ifs, and it's nurturing the new and shepherding the new. So that's what happens in community is our creativity and innovation are taken to the next level, and that certainly benefits the company, benefits the clients you serve, and your purpose and mission in the world. And number two, I would say, is challenge. Because even as we're coming to creativity and innovation, sometimes we have to hear alternative perspectives than what we're already thinking and questions from our community, from those who we're working with, to think in some different ways. And that challenge is also what sparks us to consider possibilities we hadn't thought about. Now, challenge is important because you want just the right amount. If you have too much challenge, it feels as though things are impossible. And so people tend to give up with too much challenge. They don't have a sense that anyone is for them. If there's too little challenge, it can be boring. So you want just enough to keep the creative juices flowing, to keep people thinking, and not so much that they feel as though there's no way forward or that there's no hope. So you have creativity and innovation, and then you have challenge so that you're thinking outside the box and around the edges and including perspectives that you on your own wouldn't think of. You need the community to come up with the different perspectives. And then number three, I would say support. And this is support for those new ideas, support in the form of being a champion for something that you've thought of, but someone else may actually have more opportunities to showcase what you're talking about or to bring those new opportunities to visibility or new audience out there. And so we really want to have those champions, those people who can bring statistics that back up what we're talking about, and people are wired in different ways. So you can provide support to an idea that you didn't dream up and come up with. However, you may have some information or data that can support that. You may give a voice in important rooms and places about an idea that someone else has actually surfaced. So support is also important along the way. In community, I'd also say number four is important, which is care and compassion for other people. And especially this is important for personal lives. People are experiencing deaths and illnesses of family members and all kinds of challenges every day. And in the workplace, it's really comforting and helpful if your community there can provide services that might be useful to you, such as if there's a death in your family, bringing food over, or if you're going through a time of extended illness in the family, checking in on you, sending resources that might be useful and valuable, or just a word of encouragement, a card of encouragement, flowers to cheer you up, whatever would show care and compassion, speaking your language. The same is true of disasters that might happen. There may be fires, there may be floods, and people offering acts of kindness and works of service, visiting you when you might be sick and when you might be shut in or disabled for a period of time. So, care and compassion from those who we are in community with because we spend 8 hours or more a day with those people in our workplace. So, that's one of the places that we can get a sense of caring and compassion. Our actual deep, long term friends may be miles away. They may not even be in the same city where we are, and our family members may also be geographically dispersed because we are in a very mobile society and world. And even at work, if you have a remote workplace and even a global one, there are ways to even reach out to one another in that context to show that you care and that you have compassion for what your colleague may be going through. And then number five, I would say, is fun and play together. And some people don't think that this is important. They're not interested in fun and games. They're there for work as they see it. And often, if given the opportunity, they will opt out of the fun and games. And here's what I would say about that. Children know that play is really their work. They're always learning as they're playing. And if we keep that playful spirit even as adults, we can continue to learn as we play together as well. And our adult play actually does facilitate our work experience. For one thing, as we're playing together, as we're doing team building together, we are gaining a deeper knowledge of one another. And I know that some of the exercises I do with clients really facilitates them getting to know each other at a level that they might not choose to do if they're just focused on the work itself. Yet, when you take the time to find out what this colleague is all about, what do they prefer to do? What do they like? What's their history? What's their background? What if experienced in their lives? You'll find points of connection. You'll find points of appreciation, deeper appreciation for who people are. You'll find more common ground, and it increases our trust in each other as we are spending this profound time together. So I would say that fun and play are important to taking work to a higher level, doing it better than you would do if you didn't know your colleagues as much and if you weren't playing together. And that can lead to number six, which I would say is service. And this is when many companies and organizations, they do service projects together. You might be building homes for people through Habitat for Humanity. You might be down at the homeless shelter or the soup kitchen serving people food. You may be raking leaves and pulling weeds in public places or on the highway. There are things you can do in service to the community. And as a workplace, you could do that service together, including even taking trips overseas to places where there is even greater challenge and difficulty, and you're helping children in an impoverished area have food or have school supplies or whatever it may be. So that service together is another way of working, and it shows a different side of each person who's in your workplace and can forge deeper connections that you have with each other that you bring back to your own everyday work. It facilitates more effective work when you get back to the office or to the plant or to the manufacturing floor or wherever you may be. And then that brings me to seven, which is celebration. As you have business successes, you want to celebrate them along the way. You want to celebrate the times when you have collectively given to charitable organizations or volunteered your time and hit your targets and goals or helped people to achieve a target or goal that they never thought was possible, such as having a home of their own or whatever it may be. So there's a lot that you can celebrate when in community you've been bringing that creativity, you've been bringing the innovation, you've been challenging each other to step it up to the next level, you've been providing support and championing the new ideas. And as people go through just the vicissitudes of life, providing care and compassion for one another, having fun and playing together as you learn and grow in the business, and serving the broader community also creates a tighter knit community amongst yourselves, and then celebrating, taking time to celebrate. And so, as we close today, I want to think about some celebration that took place in the book of Nehemiah. And as we will recall, Nehemiah really got word that things weren't great back in Jerusalem. They had been taken into exile, into Babylonian captivity. They were still, most of them, in captivity. And when he gets the report about what was going on in Jerusalem, with the gates are burned and the fences and all were just torn down and things were in disrepair, and he really wanted to fix that, and he really wanted to do something about it. And so he spoke to the king, got permission to go back to Jerusalem and to handle the situation. He got resources, supplies, the time to do it. And when Nehemiah got back to Jerusalem and conducted an inspection after that, he brought the community together, the community leaders at first. And then he told them, he said, we really need to do something about this. And they all put their hands to work, and they all did what was required and what was necessary. At the end of doing all of that, they had a time of celebration. And so I want to talk about that time of celebration. Part of their celebration involved two Thanksgiving choirs. And imagine that in your organization, if you assembled singers and choirs to sing songs of thanksgiving and praise about what it is that you've accomplished and what it is that you have gone through. And so I just want to read Nehemiah, the 12th chapter, starting with verse 40. And it says, So the two thanksgiving choirs stood in the house of God. Likewise, I and the half of the rulers with me, and the priest Eliakim, Masela, Benjamin, Micaiah, Elionai, Zechariah, and Hananiah with trumpets. Also Messiah, Shemaiah, Eleazar, Uzi, Johanan, Malchijah, Elam, and Ezer. The singers sang loudly with Jezreiah the director. Also, that day, they offered great sacrifices and rejoiced, for God had made them rejoice with great joy. The women and the children also rejoiced, so that the joy of Jerusalem was heard afar off. And keep in mind, as they had made these repairs, it was under great duress. They had a lot of opposition from the people around them, and yet they were successful. So not only did the men celebrate in the community, the women and the children celebrated, and the two choirs were up surrounding the community also celebrating. So even though most of you are probably working in a secular company or corporation and environment, the fact that you are there, you are a blessing to your workplace and you bring blessing to your workplace. And as your workplace is blessed, you can stop and give glory to God for how your workplace is being blessed. And you can encourage other people, though they may not necessarily give glory to God or celebrate in that way, they can still celebrate the success of the company, the success of the activities that you're engaged in, and how you're adding value to your clients, your customers, and to the marketplace. So I hope that you will consider the benefits and the advantages of creating community in your workplace and of getting to know one another at a much deeper level. And I pray that you will be blessed as you do that and as you build trust and as you build a greater platform from which to provide service. Have a blessed and fruitful day. Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of TransLeadership Incorporated. And I want to let you know that I am running a special promotion right now. If you are a CEO or executive leader in a medium to large size company and you care about how your people are treated, and especially if you share our biblical values, and right now, you may be facing difficult decisions where you want some additional perspective. You may be planning for succession in your company and developing people and preparing the organization for that succession. Or perhaps right now you're going through change. You're leading change. Maybe there's a merger, there's an acquisition. Whatever you're facing in terms of leadership, including developing your executive team, contact me, give me a call so we can do a discovery meeting to see what's going on. And here's the special promotion. The promotion is that in addition to your discovery time, I will interview up to three people, additional people from your executive team, so you have even greater context and feedback about where to go next. So reach out to me at Dr. Karen, Dr. period, Karen at transleadership.com or phone me at 719-534-0949 extension 1. I look forward to hearing from you and to coming alongside you to complete and continue your leadership journey with a positivity and profitability in your organization. Hi, this is Dr. Karen here, and I just wanted to let you know that this is the last week that we are doing the special promotion for consulting services. We always do discovery calls with prospective clients, and that will still be in place. However, the special promotion also included interviews with up to 3 executive team members. So that's ending this week. If you would like to take advantage of that, then please contact me at Karen, Karen, at transleadership.com or call me at 719-534-0949 extension 1, and we can talk about starting that service for you. Hi, it's Dr. Karen here. Did you know that you can mine the lessons from your own life and work experiences to inspire your teams and your people? So, in my book, Lead Yourself First, the Senior Leader's Guide to Engaging Your People for Greater Performance and Impact, I share snippets of my life experiences from childhood all the way up to adulthood. I also share what I learned from these experiences, how that learning informs how I lead today, and I share some examples of how I facilitate my client success with these same principles. So I invite you also to apply the same methodology to your life with reflection questions at the end of each chapter. So when you lead yourself first, you then have a foundation for leading others. In chapter 2, which is called Run Your Own Race, I share some stories from my days as an active duty Army officer when my approach to running the 2 miles for the physical training test and also my approach for the 12-mile forced road march had to be different from what other people did. So what I would say is dare to be different. Find your own success formula. Sometimes what works for you is different from what works for others. So remember to run your own race and remember to get your own copy of Lead Yourself First, and you'll find resources for how to run your own race. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.